My sister took my promotion after I worked overtime, so I resigned and started my own business that left her career in ruins. I'm a 28-year-old guy, and for most of my life, I believed loyalty and effort would eventually be rewarded. Maybe it's naive, but I grew up thinking that if you just kept your head down, worked harder than everyone else, and didn't complain, life would eventually notice you. My sister, Hannah, was always the opposite. She was the golden child, the one who got praised for breathing while I was expected to clean up every mess she left behind. I didn't hate her for it. I hated the way my parents made it feel normal. At work, though, things felt different. I was finally somewhere where merit seemed to matter. I worked at a mid-sized tech company, and I'd built a reputation for being the guy who would take night shifts, the guy management could call at 11 p.m. to fix a system crash, the guy who would take on last-minute tasks because no one else knows how to do it. I was exhausted most days, sure, but I was proud. It felt like all those years of being overlooked at home were slowly being overwritten by something meaningful. One evening, my manager pulled me aside and said, "Keep this up, and we'll be talking team lead soon." My heart jumped. I'd been grinding for over a year with that exact hope dangling in front of me. I remember walking out of his office with this strange lightness, like maybe finally I wasn't invisible. Later that week, during a family dinner, Hannah asked casually, "So, any job updates? You climbing the ladder yet?" She laughed afterward, this playful, dismissive laugh, like she couldn't imagine me actually getting anywhere before her. I brushed it off, telling her, "I'm doing fine. Don't worry about me." But something about the way she asked stuck with me. I just didn't know why yet. And I definitely didn't know how close things were to cracking. I should have realized something was off the moment my mom said, "Hannah's been thinking about applying where you work." Isn't that great? Great wasn't the word I'd use. I'd spent years trying to separate my personal life from my professional one, mostly because at work, I wasn't the shadow behind Hannah. I was actually respected. I had control. But my parents acted like it was some heartwarming sibling bonding opportunity. Hannah just smiled sweetly and said, "I mean, you could put in a word for me, right? You know how competitive the job market is." I stared at her, trying to understand why someone with zero tech background suddenly wanted to join a tech company. "I don't think it works like that," I said carefully. She shrugged. "It's fine. I'll figure it out. People love me." And unfortunately, they did. A week later, she waltzed into our living room and announced, "Guess who's starting at your company next Monday?" My jaw actually dropped. "How? You didn't even go through the interview pipeline." "Oh, Mom's cousin knows someone in HR," she said. "They moved things along." Moved things along meaning bypassed everything. I felt this tightening in my chest. It wasn't jealousy, it was dread. I'd carved out a space where I finally stood on my own merits, and now Hannah, who'd never held a job longer than 6 months, was about to stomp right into it. Her first week confirmed everything I feared. She treated orientation like a social event, taking selfies, giving everyone nicknames, and asking me loudly in hallways, "Are you proud of me, big bro?" Co-workers smiled because she was charming. Management smiled because she was energetic. And just like that, she began slipping into spaces I'd worked years to build. I kept telling myself it was temporary, that she'd get bored or overwhelmed. But deep down, a quiet unease grew, one I tried to ignore. For now. The next few weeks felt like living in two different worlds inside the same building. My world was spreadsheets, system logs, emergency bug fixes, and caffeine. Hannah's world was laughter echoing down hallways, the smell of bakery boxes she brought in 14 morale, and clusters of co-workers gathered around her desk like she was the office mascot. Meanwhile, I was drowning in workload. "Hey, can you stay a little later tonight?" "We're behind on the rollout," my manager asked for the third time that week. I nodded, because I always nodded. "Yeah, I'll handle it." Most nights I sat in a dim conference room lit only by the glow of my dual monitors, fingers stiff from typing, shoulders burning from hours of hunching forward. The air felt heavy with recycled office AC and the faint hum of machines working harder than I should have been. But I pushed through because that team lead role was finally within reach. I could feel it. And then there was Hannah. She started posting office updates on her social media, pictures of her sipping coffee in the lounge, captions like, "Corporate life is so fulfilling," followed by a winking emoji I could practically hear in her voice. In one post she wrote, "Love being part of such an amazing team. Big things coming." When I confronted her lightly, she said, "Relax, it's just for fun. People like positive energy." But it wasn't just fun. While I was fixing server errors at 2 a.m., Hannah was being noticed for her enthusiasm. Executives walked past her desk and she'd magically be in the middle of some performative conversation about ideas for improving team culture. She wasn't doing real work, but she was building an image and people were buying it. One afternoon, I overheard two co-workers whispering, "She's so refreshing. We needed someone like her." Yeah, she's going places. Places. That word stuck in my throat. Because for the first time, I wondered if the place they saw her going was exactly where I'd been working toward all this time. And that thought didn't sit quietly. It spiraled. It started small, so small I questioned whether I was imagining it. One morning during a team meeting, I was explaining the progress on a critical update when Hannah suddenly jumped in. "Oh yeah, I actually suggested that approach to him last week," she said with this confident smile. I blinked, thrown off. "You weren't there when I outlined this." She laughed it off. "Maybe I'm mixing things up. But whatever, great job, bro." People chuckled. My manager gave her this approving nod. And just like that, the seed was planted. Hannah was involved in my work. At first, I told myself it was harmless. She wanted attention. Fine. But then reports I had prepared began disappearing from shared folders. Emails I sent somehow never reached the intended recipients. When I checked the logs, it showed they'd been opened on Hannah's computer hours after I'd sent them. I approached her privately. "Did you open my files?" I asked quietly. She looked offended. "Why are you accusing me of something? I just want to learn." "That's not learning. That's interfering." She rolled her eyes. "You're being dramatic. Relax." But I couldn't relax. My manager pulled me aside one afternoon with a concerned expression. "I've been getting feedback that your communication is slipping. Are you overwhelmed?" I stood there, stunned. "No, I've been delivering the same as always." He sighed. "Just try to coordinate better. Some people feel out of the loop. Some people." I didn't need names. Hannah's enthusiasm became a shield for her and a silent weapon against me. She'd pop into conversations I was leading, redirect discussions, or add clarifying points that twisted the narrative of who did what. And worst of all, everyone adored her for it. At home, she acted like nothing was wrong. "Work's fun," she'd say. "I finally feel like I'm contributing." Contributing. That word gnawed at me. Because while she contributed charm, appearance, and noise, I contributed everything else. Still, something darker was forming beneath the surface, something I couldn't yet define, but could definitely feel closing in. Promotion week arrived like a storm I pretended not to see coming. Everyone was buzzing, whispers in break rooms, hopeful jokes in the elevator, managers holding closed-door meetings that made half the office anxious. I tried to stay focused. I poured myself into the final round of deliverables, polishing reports until my eyes burned, running test environments late into the night, making sure nothing, absolutely nothing, could be used against me. But while I was grinding, Hannah was glowing. She suddenly started working late, though every time I passed by her desk, she was organizing her stationery or scrolling on her phone until she heard footsteps approaching. Then she'd instantly switch into performance mode. Just reviewing the Q3 projections, she'd say loudly, even though the document wasn't even open. Management lapped it up. To them, she wasn't the new girl without experience, she was the bubbly, energetic newcomer who went the extra mile. One night around 9 p.m., I stepped out of the server room and found her sitting at my desk, going through my files. "What are you doing?" I asked, my voice sharper than I intended. She jumped. "Oh. I was just, learning." I want to understand your workflow. That's not your place, Hannah. She shrugged, smiling in that disarming way she always had. You're so tense. I'm just trying to grow. Grow. That word felt like a warning. The next morning, a group of co-workers joked in the kitchen. Hannah's basically running things now. Yeah, she's got the spark. Leadership material. Leadership material. Meanwhile, I was the one printing out error logs at midnight, fixing issues that could tank entire product launches. Still, I convinced myself that results mattered more than impressions. I told myself managers knew what I'd done for the company. I reminded myself of every night spent at the office when everyone else was asleep. But deep down, an unease clung to me like damp air, heavy, cold, and impossible to shake. And by the end of that week, I would learn just how wrong I'd been to ignore it. The announcement meeting felt like stepping into a dream I didn't want to interpret. Everyone gathered in the main conference room, bright overhead lights, anxious chatter, the smell of burned coffee lingering from an overworked machine. I sat near the front, not because I wanted attention, but because after everything I'd put in, I needed to hear the words clearly. My hands were cold, resting on my lap, and my heartbeat thudded like someone knocking from inside my chest. My manager stepped forward with a grin. All right, everyone, we're thrilled to announce our new team lead. I inhaled. Hannah. For a moment, I genuinely thought I misheard him. The room erupted into applause, chairs shifting, co-workers smiling. I sat frozen, staring straight ahead, my ears ringing. Hannah stood up, feigning shock so dramatic it made my stomach twist. Oh my gosh, seriously? I don't even know what to say, she squealed. She walked to the front, and the moment she grabbed the mic, she looked directly at me. I couldn't have done this without my brother, she said sweetly. He's mentored me so much. Mentored. I felt something crack quietly inside me, like a hairline fracture in a bone no one notices until it breaks. After the meeting, I confronted my manager, voice trembling but controlled. I need to understand how this decision was made. He exhaled slowly. Look. Hannah has strong leadership qualities. Clients like her. She has presence. I completed every major update this quarter. I handled every critical failure. I know, he said, not meeting my eyes. But leadership isn't just technical skill. Then he added the sentence that still makes my blood run cold. She pitched a vision last week, your project idea. It impressed the executives. My project. My idea. Presented without me. Behind closed doors. I walked out of his office feeling weightless in the worst possible way, like I'd stepped off a cliff without realizing it. And I had no idea the floor was still a long way down. The walk home after that meeting felt like moving underwater. My legs were heavy, my chest tight, and the cold evening air stung my face as if the world itself was reminding me I'd been stupid to hope. I kept replaying the moment she thanked me, my own sister accepting the promotion I'd bled for, as if she had the right to stand on the pieces of my work. When I walked through the front door, my parents were already waiting in the living room, smiles stretched wide. Hannah told us, my mom said, practically glowing. Team led. Isn't that incredible? My dad clapped me on the back. Your sister always had that spark. You should be proud. I could barely breathe. Proud? I echoed quietly. Hannah sauntered in behind them with that same innocent smile. Don't be weird, bro. We're all celebrating. I looked at her. Really looked. She didn't even try to hide the glint in her eyes, smug, victorious, delighted that the world had once again chosen her over me. I worked for that promotion, I said, my voice trembling. She shrugged. You're good at what you do. I'm good at leading. It's not a competition. But it was. She'd made it one. The next day at work, things got even worse. When I walked in, a group of coworkers glanced at me with pity, actual pity, like I was some wounded animal limping back into its cage. Hannah was already in her new seat, the team lead desk, her nameplate freshly printed and gleaming. Hey, she called out to me cheerfully. Come see me later. We need to discuss task assignments. Task assignments. She wasn't just above me, she owned my workload now. By noon, my responsibilities had been redistributed. Critical systems I'd built from scratch were now being directed by someone who had no idea how they even functioned. And I was told to support her transition. Support the person who stole everything from me. That was the moment I hit rock bottom, not because I lost a title, but because I saw how replaceable my loyalty made me. And something inside me finally started to shift. Rock bottom has a strange way of sharpening things. The day Hannah became my boss, something inside me went quiet, not defeated quiet, but calculating quiet. The kind of quiet where the fog lifts and you finally see the truth without excuses or hope blinding you. I wasn't valued here. I wasn't respected. I was a tool, useful until exploited, loyal until drained. So I stopped reacting emotionally and started planning. At work, I kept my head down and did exactly what Hannah expected, the bare minimum acknowledgement. But behind that calm facade, I began building a private archive. I documented everything, timestamps of updates, version histories, system logs only I knew how to navigate. Months of unpaid overtime? I had records. Process maps I created? All backed up. Entire workflows the company depended on? Designed, optimized, and maintained solely by me. One afternoon, while the office buzzed with conversations she manufactured for attention, Hannah cornered me near the print station. "You seem off," she said with this fake concern. "I hope you're not still upset about the promotion." I didn't look at her. "I'm fine." She tilted her head. "Good. Because I need you to put together training material for my new responsibilities. Make it detailed, okay?" Detailed. It took everything in me not to let my bitterness slip through. "Sure," I said calmly. "I'll handle it." But the truth? I was handling something entirely different. Co-workers quietly began approaching me in hallways. "Listen, we know you're the one who kept the infrastructure alive," one whispered. Another said, "If you ever went independent, I'd hire you in a second." Their words weren't flattery, they were confirmation. I wasn't just an employee. I was the backbone. Meanwhile, Hannah strutted around with her new title, blissfully unaware of how fragile her throne really was. At night, in the dim glow of my home office, I researched resignation law, intellectual ownership, and consulting rates. Every click, every article, every plan made my chest feel tighter, but stronger. Because for the first time, I wasn't preparing to endure something. I was preparing to leave. And soon, they'd feel what my absence truly meant. The morning I chose to resign felt strangely calm. No shaking hands, no racing thoughts, just a steady resolve I hadn't felt in years. I walked into the office early, the hall still dim, the soft hum of servers echoing like a quiet reminder of everything I'd carried alone. I sat at my desk and opened the resignation letter I'd rewritten at least 10 times. This version was concise, professional, and devastatingly clear about my contributions and what would collapse without proper handover. At exactly 9 a.m., I walked into my manager's office and placed the letter on his desk. He looked up, startled. "Wait, what? You're resigning?" "Yes," I said. "Effective immediately." His face drained. "You know we depend on you for multiple core systems. This is extremely abrupt." I met his eyes. "Those systems were never meant to be one-person responsibilities. But you made them that way." He skimmed the letter, the part detailing how the infrastructure lacked documentation, how only I managed certain automation scripts, how my overtime hadn't been compensated. I watched the panic settle in his shoulders. He knew exactly what this meant. By noon, the office was buzzing. "Are you serious?" "You're leaving?" one coworker asked. Another whispered, "This place is dead without you." Hannah burst into the break room where I was clearing my desk. "You can't just leave," she snapped. "I need you to help me transition into this role." "It's irresponsible." I calmly zipped my backpack. "My responsibility ended the moment you took credit for my work." She stepped closer, eyes blazing. "You're doing this to sabotage me." I shook my head. "No, Hannah. You did that to yourself." As I headed toward the door, I could feel the tension thickening behind me, managers scrambling, coworkers whispering, emails piling up in my inbox asking for urgent help. But I didn't turn back. I walked out of that building and into the cold sunlight, feeling something I hadn't felt in months, maybe years. Freedom. And then, almost immediately, opportunity. The first morning after quitting, I woke up before my alarm out of habit, not obligation. But instead of dread, there was this strange lightness in my chest, like I'd stepped out of a cage I didn't know I'd been locked inside. My apartment felt different too. The quiet wasn't suffocating anymore. It felt expectant. Like the silence was asking me, "So what now?" I opened my laptop and stared at the blank screen for a long moment before typing the first words of my new chapter. Independent Systems and Automation Consultant. It didn't feel real yet, but the idea had been growing in me for months. I had the skills. I had the experience. And apparently, I had something even more valuable: reputation. Because within days, my phone started buzzing. The first call came from a client my old company had worked with. "Hey," the manager said softly, "we heard you left. We're struggling. Any chance you're available for contract work?" I kept my voice steady. "I am." "Great. We trust you more than the whole team." That line stuck with me. More than the whole team. I completed that first project in half the time they expected. Then another company called. Then another. Word spread fast, too fast for Hannah's team to keep up. Every time I fixed a system they had broken, I built a little more credibility. Every invoice I sent made me realize how undervalued I'd been. Meanwhile, messages trickled in from former coworkers. "Dude, everything is chaos here. Hannah can't handle the workflows. They're asking if you left documentation." "Did you?" "No. No, I did not." The contracts kept coming. My income tripled in a matter of weeks. I worked from home, in coffee shops, in quiet corners of the city, anywhere but that suffocating office. The air felt clearer. Threads of anxiety that used to sit behind my ribs began to loosen. But with my rise, came the beginning of Hannah's fall. And I didn't even have to lift a finger to push it. I didn't expect the crash to happen so quickly. One morning, while typing up a report for a high-paying client, I got 3 messages from old coworkers, each more frantic than the last. "Systems are failing. Hannah can't resolve anything. Executives are furious." I leaned back in my chair, letting the information sink in. I hadn't sabotaged anything. I hadn't touched a single file after leaving. The truth was simpler and far uglier for her: she had built her entire position on work she didn't understand. 2 days later, the meltdown went public inside the company. A major client escalated a formal complaint because a workflow I used to manage crashed twice in 24 hours. I heard from a coworker that during an internal audit, the executives asked Hannah to walk them through the automation system she allegedly designed. Apparently, she froze. Then stammered. Then tried to blame old code. But the timestamps didn't lie. The scripts were mine. Every single one. Later that evening, my phone buzzed again. "You won't believe this," a coworker texted. "HR opened an investigation. They found out she pitched your project as hers." Another message followed. "She's getting demoted. Leadership is pissed." I stared at the texts, not smiling, not celebrating, just absorbing it. Hannah had taken my work, my identity at that company, and used it as a stepping stone. And now she was slipping off it, unable to keep her balance without the foundation I'd built beneath her. The worst blow came when her social circle at work turned their backs on her. She lied about so much. She manipulated the whole team. She wasn't qualified from the start. Her charm couldn't save her. Her energy couldn't distract anyone anymore. The illusion had shattered. I heard she cried in the hallway after a brutal meeting with HR. I heard she tried to argue her way out of consequences. I heard her reputation collapsed in a single week. And even from a distance, I knew the fallout wasn't over. Not for her. Not for my family. Not for me. Because soon, she'd come straight to my doorstep. I was reviewing a contract when I heard the knock on my apartment door, soft at first, then frantic, like someone trying to pretend they weren't falling apart. When I opened it, Hannah stood there, mascara smudged, hair messy, eyes swollen. It was the first time I'd ever seen her without the confidence she used as armor. "Can I come in?" she whispered. I stepped aside silently. She sat on my couch, wringing her hands. The room felt still, the air heavy with everything we hadn't said in years. "They demoted me," she finally muttered. "They said I misrepresented myself. That I lied. And everyone at work hates me now." I waited. "They fired me today," she choked out. "I don't know what to do." "You always fix things. You always know what to say." There it was. The unspoken truth of our entire lives. I fix. She takes. "Hannah," I said quietly, "I can't fix this for you." She looked up sharply. "Why not? You helped me before." "No," I interrupted softly. "I carried you. And you never once acknowledged the weight." Her eyes filled with tears again. "I'm sorry, okay? I messed up. Just help me get another job. Please." I shook my head. "You didn't mess up once. You made a lifetime career out of stepping on me because you assumed I'd never push back." She stared at me like she was seeing someone else, someone she never expected me to become. I continued, "Loyalty means something to me. So does honesty. You broke both. I'm not your safety net anymore." Silence swallowed the room. Finally, she whispered, "So that's it?" "That's me choosing myself," I said. She left without another word, and the door clicked shut with a finality I felt deep in my chest. I walked back to my desk, the evening sun casting warm light across the scattered papers, contracts, invoices, plans for expansion. My business wasn't just surviving. It was thriving. I had clients waiting, work I actually cared about, a future I'd built with my own hands. For the first time in my life, I wasn't living in Hannah's shadow. I'd stepped out of it. And I wasn't going back.